Hello everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com and it's my favourite time of the week. It's week 40, I believe, in Wrestlers of the Week land, and what an exciting week it's been. Now, you may be aware that myself and Sam went to Progress's Wembley show last weekend, but that has not yet gone up on demand, so those matches will not be taken into account this week. No mercy. Don't know why I got so aggressive at the start there. But we did have some wonderful shows from the likes of New Japan, and Ring of Honor had some good matches, the Mae Young Classic was great this week, so we're just going to have a little look at the general landscape of professional wrestling before hopefully Progress goes up sometime this weekend or early next week, and also we'll have the big Super Showdown to take into account as well. So we've got all that to look forward to next week, but for now, let's stick to that lovely crunchy wrestling action that we've already seen. There were some proper good matches this week. But first of all, it's time for some honourable mentions. I'm going to include in the honourable mentions section anybody who hasn't made the list from the Mae Young Classic, because I think this was probably the strongest episode so far of this year's tournament. I really enjoyed it. Pretty much all the matches on there were pretty decent to very good, so any of the women who don't make this list today will be making my honourable mentions. Also GOD, the Gorillas of Destiny, Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, who won the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championships at a New Japan's event in California. It was probably the best GOD match that I've seen, actually, or the best that I can remember for a long time. So well done, boys, and well done all the women in the Mae Young Classic. Now it's time to get on with the top 10. Number 10 is a man who competed in the main event of that Long Beach show for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and it's a man who is no stranger to Wrestlers of the Week. The Stone Pitbull, Sam Driver's favourite, Tomohiro Ishii. Now, the main event of that show was a tag match between the Golden Lovers, Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi, and Chaos, Kazuchika Okada and Tomohiro Ishii. And while the whole match was kind of built around teasing a conflict between Okada and Omega, the biggest, grandest rivals in the wrestling world right now, at the same time, I was more impressed with the peripheral figures, Ishii and Ibushi. The match has been given 5 stars by Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. I'm not sure if I'd go that far. I do think it was very good, though, and I think that it's hard to grade this one in terms of point allocation, because you've got 4 people in there all taking a little chunk of the action, so I just had to sort of decide who did the best and how much does that weigh. I thought Ishii was really good, is my point. So basically, Okada and Omega would always tease a little bit of an epic battle, but then Ishii and Ibushi would always dash in to help the other man, and Ishii's form of helping out his partner was to just bowl over Kenny Omega at several opportunities. Omega was bumping all over the place for him, and then when it all boiled down to Ishii versus Ibushi, with Omega and Okada taken out of the action, obviously they hit each other really hard in the face and body. That's just their modus operandi. So, fair play to the lads. Ishii is one of the most underappreciated wrestlers in the world today. He's one of the best as well. And I think, you know, I could have probably given him some more points this week, but there was just so much good action. So well done, Ishii. A solitary point for you. Number 9, picking up 2 points, is another man in that main event tag team match, Kota Ibushi. Now, a lot of the same points I've already covered in the Ishii entry just a few seconds ago, but I thought that Ibushi was particularly in sparkling form this week. He was having one of those performances where you often see a wrestler who's just on his game, on form, everything's going perfectly, everything he tried came off really well, his timing was excellent, he was snapping strikes out there, he was countering and reversing and doing flips. Ibushi's one of the best all-rounders in the ring today, and really got a chance to display that in Long Beach, so I thought this was a really good demonstration of what he can do, but I'm desperate to see him get a big old singles match at Wrestle Kingdom. The way that Wrestle Kingdom has been structured so far, the card's still a bit of a mystery, but at the same time, I really hope that Ibushi gets an opponent who he can really shine against. Number 8, one of those competitors that I was talking about in this week's Mae Young Classic, Miko Satomura from Japan. She had maybe, I think, the best match of the tournament so far against Mercedes Martinez, and won after a pretty epic battle. And the strength of this contest, I think, was the fact that it was in the second round. In a lot of the first round matches, you can already sort of tell who's going to progress just by looking at their name value, I guess. So for example, when you had Io Shirai versus Jaya Brookside, you know, it all was very obvious that Io Shirai, as the more established and respected star, not to discredit Brookside in any way, was probably going to progress. In this match, however, you've got 2 very worthy contenders on a pretty even playing field. Yes, Satomura has the edge in terms of legacy and experience. She's been one of the best women's wrestlers in Japan for a long time now, but at the same time, Mercedes Martinez is one of the most well-respected indie wrestlers in North America. So you had this sort of little clash of titans, a match that could easily have appeared far later in the tournament than in the second round. Satomura has been one of the most eye-catching wrestlers in the tournament so far, with her unique unique and hard-hitting offense, and that was on full display against Mercedes Martinez, but also on display was her ability at selling and taking a beating as well, which is obviously half of the battle in putting on a great professional wrestling match. Satomura did all of those things with no bother at all. She's a very, very good and very respected and established star, and yeah, she kind of just let it all hang out there in this second round match. She was really, really good. I was very impressed, and there was a nice show of respect afterwards as well, because even though she picked up the victory, she gave Martinez a bit of a hug and a handshake and everything, and it's sad to see Martinez bow out, but it's very exciting still to see Satomura progress to the next round. Lovely. Next up, number 7, Jay Lethal, who defended his Ring of Honor World Championship in the main event of, I believe it was Death Before Dishonor last weekend, against Will Ospreay, and retained the title. Now, because of the strength of this match, you could make an argument that I should have actually put Jay Lethal higher on this week's list instead of just giving him 4 points. However, at the same time, I didn't particularly enjoy the booking. Well, first of all, I get that scheduling conflicts get in the way of ideal plans for various promoters, so I was kind of screaming for Ring of Honor to take a risk and put their World Championship on Will Ospreay, but at the same time I can understand that his New Japan schedule probably makes that a little bit difficult. So I have no major qualms with Jay Lethal winning, and it was a brilliant match, and neither guy looked weak at all. He didn't crush Ospreay in defeat or anything. It was very, very competitive, but at the same time, I don't really know how good it is to have Jay Lethal as the Ring of Honor World Champion right now. Ring of Honor are in a bit of a tricky spot. The only guys who seem to be getting any sort of big reaction at their shows are New Japan guys rather than their own Ring of Honor talent. So that's a bit of an issue. Also, after the match, he was attacked and challenged for a title match by Matt Taven, who seems to have just sort of sprung back onto the title scene with little rhyme or reason. So the match was brilliant. That's why he's got the points this week. But at the same time, I don't really enjoy the position that Lethal's in right now, and that's why I've not given him too many points. So still a very good week for Jay, and you know, he's going to go down in history as maybe the greatest Ring of Honor World Champion of all time. So you can't complain too much. Next up, someone I've already briefly mentioned on this list, it's Mercedes Martinez, who I think put on, maybe for my money, the best individual performance of the Mae Young Classic so far, even in defeat. Martinez was one of the strongest competitors in last year's Mae Young Classic, but she was kind of overshadowed a lot by various other wrestlers in the tournament, even though she made the semi-finals. So she's really impressive and really good, but she was overshadowed a lot by the likes of Kairi Sane, Shayna Baszler, who beat her in the semi-finals, despite being, I think, real-life stablemates in the Indies before Baszler jumped full-time to WWE. Viper, you know, Toni Storm, Candice LeRae, they were all names that kind of garnered a lot more hype than Mercedes Martinez did. She was more the glue that held that first tournament together. It turns out she won't be progressing much further in the second incarnation of the Mae Young Classic, because she did lose to Meiko Satomura here, but in doing so, she really burned brightly. She put on a really good performance. I think maybe her best performance in either version of the tournament. It was really, really good. She found an opponent that she absolutely clicked with, and even though many people would look at that matchup and think, oh, Satomura is going to wow everybody and beat Mercedes Martinez, and Martinez might put in a good showing, it was actually the opposite way around. I was way more impressed with Martinez than I was with Satomura, even though she didn't pick up the victory. This match actually changed my opinion on Martinez. I used to see her as more of a background figure in the women's wrestling scene from her Mae Young Classic performances. I'm not too familiar with her outside of that in like Shimmer or wherever, but at the same time, this match made me really hope that she either, I guess, signs with WWE or has more opportunities in bigger indie promotions in the near future. And I think a lot of people would hopefully agree with that, and she hopefully would get that opportunity in the months to come. Number 5, a man who's just holding all the cards right now in the wrestling world, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and now the IWGP United States Champion, Cody Rhodes. Whoa, oh, smoke mirror. Whoa. Cody's doing really well these days. He basically won the IWGP United States Championship in California, defeating Juice Robinson in a match that divided opinion. It was a good match, not the best on the card, but still a very good one. Just a bit of a controversial booking decision, I think, because Juice has been a little bit sort of not buried, but a little bit sort of swept aside by this decision. He had the chance to really make this title reign mean something, and now he's lost it to the biggest star, the more established star, in the form of Cody Rhodes. So it's been a sad and disappointing week for Juice, but at the same time, Cody looks $1 million now. He's got 2 belts from different, promotions or organizations, and it was a clever finish to the match as well. He and Juice were on the top. Juice hit a big, nice superplex, but then Cody did a nice old school Dynamite Kid style, Ricky Steamboat style finish where he took the superplex, but then locked up Juice Robinson in a surprise little pinning predicament, popped his shoulder off the canvas right at the last second, and managed to scoop the title. Cody's really becoming more like a classic wrestler these days. He's always using callbacks to the golden age of wrestling, to the 80s, to both NWA sort of style stuff and WWF style stuff. And I think, honestly, this was a very thrilling finish, which may have made up for a lot of little imperfections in the match. Then when you look at the fact that, you know, Cody's teasing All In 2 and everyone's really still hyped about the prospect of that, and All In was a big success, I think he could be one of the most powerful men in wrestling right now, and has backed it up this week with a solid in-ring performance and the scooping, the capturing of a major title at the same time. Next up at number 4, another member of the Bullet Club, Nick Jackson, one half of the Young Bucks. Now, I mentioned in the honorable mentions that the Guerrillas of Destiny won the IWGP Tag Team Championship from the Young Bucks in California, but at the same time, I was way more impressed with the losers in this match than the winners. Yes, it was a great match for Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, but at the same time, the Young Bucks were really on sparkling form here. There was a really strong story told, and it all rode on the fact that the Young Bucks had to put in a brilliant performance, and they did. Nick Jackson's role was really carrying the load for his team because of Matt Jackson's back injury, which flared up again at the worst possible time. It was a really compelling story, and because of that, that meant that Nick often had moments of like 2-on-1 against both members of GOD, and had to keep an eye on Haku, who's lurking in one of the corners of the ring as well, but didn't actually get involved. It was a really good performance from Nick Jackson. He was flipping all over the place, pulling off all of the Young Bucks' signature spots, and also, when Matt wasn't able to, he would help set up like the Meltzer driver or the more bang for your buck by physically lifting Matt and their opponent into position. It was really compelling stuff, really different sort of wrestling match, and I really, really liked it. So well done, Nick Jackson. A big hefty 7 points for you. Number 3, another member of the Bullet Club, too sweet everyone, Matt Jackson, the brother of Nick Jackson. What a bloody coincidence. Now, as much as Nick Jackson had to carry the sort of action load for his team in the action load, sounds dirty, had to carry the bulk of the wrestling for his team in this match, Matt Jackson's storytelling, psychology, and selling were all absolutely on point in this match, and I was really impressed with him. I thought this was excellent stuff. His back went on a sort of, in ironic fashion, his back went on a little needless flip that the Young Bucks did to just set up a double super kick, and they didn't need to do the moonsault or the back flip, and he did it and went, oh no, and his back was gone. And then from then on, he was selling the back at every opportunity. He never let up on the selling. It was really good stuff, really immersive, and took a hell of a table bump as well off the top rope, through a table on the outside, sold for a long time, so he was out of the match for a little bit, but when he came back in, it was brilliant stuff from both of the Young Bucks, but particularly Matt. One of the more compelling spots I remember is when they were doing more bang for your buck, which involved Nick, as I mentioned, physically levering one of GOD into position on Matt's shoulders. Then Matt hit the running flippy thing, Nick hit his flippy thing, and then Matt had to go for the moonsault, I know the name of that one, and paused and couldn't climb the turnbuckle, and the crowd were at fever pitch. Eventually he hit it, the whole place went up, and it was a very good near fall. Also, his facial expressions were just absolutely on point throughout the match, really selling the anguish, the disbelief of the situation, and eventually like the heartbreaking, crushing loss that they suffered as well. So well done, Matt Jackson. A wonderful performance from both of the Young Bucks. What a Bullet Club day it's been on Wrestlers of the Week. 2 sweet, 1 sweet, all in. Number 2, another member of the Bullet Club. Yeah, the villain, Marty Scurll. Now, Marty had that semi-final tournament match for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, the vacant championship, in California once again. It was a very strong show, actually, on reflection. Basically, in the other bracket, Kushida has already defeated Bushi and would await the winner of this match in the final. And Marty Scurll did win the match and will progress to that final against Kushida. That should be a really good contest, but this was too. Marty Scurll has really kind of upped the ante in recent months, I guess, because he had that wonderful match with Kazuchika Okada at All In, which may have overrun a tad, and also had a really good match here against Will Ospreay, his old foe. And the great thing about Ospreay Scurll matches is the fact that, yes, they've faced each other an impossible number of times to count over the course of both of their careers, but at the same time, they always find something different. So the story here was Ospreay kicking Scurll's ass from the start. He's kind of broken the Scurll curse that Scurll had over him, but then Scurll fought his way back into it. And he's a bit of a different beast now, because when the chicken wing didn't work, he pulled out his new, more heavyweight style finisher, the Graduation, a big slam onto the canvas, and that was enough to pick up the victory. Also, Scurll continues to be one of the most over guys on the independent wrestling scene. Whenever he makes an entrance, the crowd are electric for him. And can New Japan count as the independents? Probably not, but Scurll still does indie shows, and You know what I mean. But yes, Skull towards the end of the year appears to be hitting a real patch of good performances and that sort of thing. So hopefully his match against Kushida is a really good one. I'm not certain who I want to win the championship in that bout. I think that Kushida is obviously the ace of the junior division, and him winning the belt would be maybe the more conservative decision, whereas if Skull won it, they could really take things in a new direction. But I truly wouldn't be disappointed with either result if it came down to either man winning. So I kind of want Skull to win though. And number one in my wrestler of the week, don't rip my head off, everyone, it's Will Ospreay. Yes, Will Ospreay scoops the big 10 points again. I think it's his third time as wrestler of the week. Only three. It's only three, don't panic. But I think that you can't really argue for anyone else this week. He had two of the best matches of the week, one against Jay Lethal for the Ring of Honor World Championship, and the one that I've just mentioned against Marty Scurll in the semi-finals of that tournament. But I've already talked about the match. I want to talk about what's next for Will Ospreay, because he's obviously not going to be winning the Junior Heavyweight Championship now after losing to Scurll. But what's he going to do in the future? There are a lot of rumours that Ospreay is setting himself up, and indeed Ospreay's hinted at it himself once in an interview with me. In fact, after the interview, he chopped me really hard in the chest. But Ospreay seems to be gearing up for a switch to the heavyweight division. He looks a bit physically bigger. He's changed his moveset a little bit, like Scurll. He's brought in a new heavyweight style finisher, the Stormbreaker. So I just really wonder what he's going to do. And if he does make that leap to heavyweight, what sort of singles matches are we going to see from Will Ospreay? We've already seen him wrestle the likes of Okada. We've already seen him wrestle the likes of Omega, not necessarily in New Japan, but in PWG and places like that. But when we see him wrestle these guys, hopefully on a bigger stage with more time to plan out long, elaborate matches that New Japan love to put on, what could happen, basically? What's going to happen if Will Ospreay does make that leap to heavyweight? And I really, really hope he does, because I think, honestly, it could be one of the most exciting moves in wrestling today if that were the case. So without any further ado, let's take a look at that lovely league table. As we can see, Will Ospreay has sprung out ahead. I think he's got about a 2-week gap now over second place. Has he won it? Not yet. Kota Ibushi is now level with Hiromu Takahashi, who is still sadly injured, now in 8th position. And Cody is now up to 13th place, leapfrogging both Ricochet and Hiroshi Tanahashi. Marty Scurll is up level with Ricochet in 15th as well. And it just seems as though this week the Bullet Club boys have really been swarming up the table. This could well be Bullet Club week in Wrestlers of the Week. But what an exciting development, and we'll see what happens next time around. So that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Jack from Cultaholic.com. You can follow me if you want on Twitter at Jack the Jobber. You can follow all of us at Cultaholic, and check out our Patreon too at patreon.com/Cultaholic. And never forget, of course, obviously, to join us.